Hello, this time we're going to look at solving compound inequalities. So remember, inequalities have those signs that have greater than, less than, greater than, equal to, less than, or equal to. So we're going to look at how do we solve some of these inequalities. But again, they're compound, so that means we kind of have two and one. And so what does that mean, and how do we figure out the answer? All right, let's look at some examples and get right to it. So they will ask you to solve 15 greater than or equal to negative 3x, or 2/5 x greater than or equal to negative 2. So this is what makes them be compound, is notice there's two of them. So we kind of have to solve them individually, which is totally fine, and then we'll squish them together in the end. So 15 greater than or equal to negative 3x. Our solving is pretty much the same as equations. So we still need to get x by itself. We still do the opposite of what's there. There's only one key difference when we solve inequalities, and that's if we multiply or divide by a negative number, then we have to flip the sign. All right, so in this case, we need to get x by itself, negative 3 times x, so we're going to divide by a negative 3. So this is what I mean by what I just said. Divide or multiply by a negative. This should tip off our little radar. And so on this side we get x, on this side we get negative 5, but because we divided by a negative, our sign flips directions. Okay, that's the only difference in this case. All right, let's take a look at the other one. So we have 2/5 x greater than or equal to negative 2. We can do this a couple different ways. So it's 2/5 times x, so we can divide both sides by 2/5. And so we have negative 2 divided by 2/5. Remember, we can write any whole number like a fraction by putting it over 1. And we don't actually divide, we multiply, but we flip those fractions. And then we multiply straight across. So negative 2 times 5 is negative 10. 1 times 2 is 2. Negative 10 divided by 2 is a negative 5. So we get x is greater than negative 5. Okay, I'm going to write it here. Greater than or equal to negative 5. All right. Now what? So, it tells us to solve this. I'm going to erase some of this so we have some room. So let's leave our answers there for just a second. I'll reposition them so that we can look at them in a little bit different way. Okay, so we have negative 5 is less than or equal to x, or we have x is greater than or equal to negative 5 as our answers. Now, sometimes it's easier to see what our solution is if we put this on a number line. So in this case, if we were to put this on a number line, the first answer, here's negative 5. X is greater than or equal to negative 5. So in this case, when we are greater than, it's going to be a solid circle, and greater than, we're going to go this direction. Let's do the same thing with the other answer. So in this case, here's negative 5. And x is greater than or equal to negative 5. So again, with the equal sign, we are a solid dot. Greater than means we go to the right. What happens is we want to put these together, and notice if I put these both on the same number line, they are the same answer, which is totally fine. So that is our solution. Now, in the lesson, they will write these in what we call set notation. It's a bit different, and so let me show you what that looks like. we get to use our curly brackets, and we define our variable. So this case we say x is our variable, just to tell the reader that's what we're counting as our variable. We put a line there, and then we tell what about this variable. So x is greater than or equal to -5. And then we close our curly brackets. So this is just a different way to show the answer. But this is saying x such that x is greater than or equal to -5 is our solution to this compound inequality. All right, let's look at another example. All right, solve x plus 2 less than 5 unioned with x minus 7 greater than -6. Okay, so that weird U that's in there means union. So it's a different way to write the word or. And I'll explain what these are in just a second, because we'll be able to see the difference with another example that I'm going to do as well. So it's just a different way to say the word or. It's a union symbol, and so it stands for union. So we want to solve these individually. So we have x plus 2 is less than 5. We want to get x by itself. So in this case, we need to subtract the 2 from both sides. X is less than 3. And let's solve the other equation. X minus 7 greater than -6. Again, get x by itself. So we need to add 7 to both sides. And so we get x is greater than 1. Now let's look at what this means on a number line. Right? So if we have, let's put 1 here and 3 here, because the idea is that we put them on the same number line. Now we want to graph them both onto there. So it says x is less than 3, so it would be an open circle because there's not the equal sign, and we'd be going to the left because that's towards the smaller side. So that's the first one. Then let's look at the other. And so x is greater than 1, so we would have an open circle because it's not the equal sign, but greater than means we're going to the right. And so notice, what have we covered on the number line? Well, we've covered everything. So in this case, how could we write this as in set notation? We would say x such that x is less than 3 or x is greater than 1. And that would be our answer. Okay. One more example for you. Solve. And we have 4 minus x is less than or equal to -1. Intersect with 2 plus 3x greater than or equal to 17. So let's solve these individually again. 4 minus x less than or equal to -1. Get x all by itself. So let's start there. We're going to subtract 4 from both sides. We get -x is less than or equal to -5 because -1 minus 4 is 5. And then we have to get rid of the -1, the negative in front. So we divide by a -1. And again, what happens when we divide or multiply by a negative? Sign flips directions. Negative 5 divided by negative 1 is a positive 5. So looking at this one on a number line, and here's our 5, what happens here? Well, we're going to have a solid dot on there and greater than or equal to. So we're going to go this way. Now let's look at the other inequality. 2 plus 3x is greater than or equal to 17. Again, we're going to solve for x. So subtract 2 from both sides. So we have 3x is greater than or equal to 15. And then we need to divide both sides by 3. So we have x is greater than or equal to 5. And so let's look at this particular one. Notice they're the same here, but I'll explain something in just a second. So here's our 5. We would go ahead. And so to put these on the same number line, if they said to graph the solution, then notice if we put these on the same number line, it would be the same solution, and that would be our answer. And that's how we would graph it. Make sure to put the closed dot on the 5 and then the arrow. Now, what is the difference between this weird upside down U in this case? This guy right here. Intersection. So intersection means what they share. So if we go back to the idea of a Venn diagram, where we put things, there are two categories and we put things on there. And when we talk about an intersection is what they share. So it would be just this part here. So it's what they share. So anytime I see this, it means intersection. And it's what they have in common or what they share. Okay. However, if I see the union, so stands for union, the other thing I need to put on here is that the intersection is also associated with the word and. And then union is associated with the word or. And so a union would mean it's what they have together, right? So union, just kind of like a marriage. So it's what each one has individually and what they share. So it's everything. So union is just everything. What they share and what they have by themselves. Okay. So in future lessons, you might see that it goes a little bit further with these inequalities to really show you those differences between how do I know what my answer is when it's an intersection versus a union. Okay, so that concludes this lesson. Again, as you work through your lesson, if you have questions, ask your teacher. Have a great day.